Welcome to today's episode of the Craftsman Creative Podcast. My guest today is Chapman, a creator who is passionate about turning notes and ideas into content and products. She is one of the most prolific creators I know, and in this episode we talked about her creative process and how you can do the same. You can take your ideas, turn them into content and products, and how you can become prolific just as she has. Now, if you haven't yet, be sure to sign up for the free 5-day email series over at craftsmancreative.co. It helps creators learn how to build six-figure businesses, and my goodness, it has like an 80% open rate, so people are loving it. Make sure to head over there and grab it for yourself if you haven't already. Now, on to the episode. All right, welcome everybody. This is Darren with craftsmancreative.co. I am here speaking with Chapman, and this conversation has been a long time coming. I've been following Ev for, I think, probably a year now, and we've been in spaces together, and we've talked a few times, but we've never had a real conversation. So I am very excited to be talking with you because you are just this incredibly prolific, inspiring, high energy, positive person online, and I love whenever your tweets come through my feed because I'm just like, oh yeah, she's doing it and she's inspiring people and it's amazing. So I'd love to start with just let's give people kind of your quick bio and some context around who you are, how you got into creative work, and then we'll really dive in. We're going to be talking about the creative process. We'll probably get really nerdy on Zettelkasten and things like that because I love those things too, and we'll see where the conversation takes us. How about that?
Yeah, totally. I think, thanks for having me as well. I know we kind of, we're like, let's do this. And then, I don't know, life happens and then you're circling back. But I think, my name's Ev. I have been creating for probably 18 months, serious creator online. And before that, I had dabbled in a lot of things, podcasts, vlogging, other blogs, that kind of thing. But I never seemed to be able to get it going, or even just kind of, I don't know, really make a thing of it. And so around about March last year, I started writing on Twitter. And that was it for me. I found something that I really love doing, and I found people who wanted to hear about it as well. And I've had a great time doing it. I've grown a great audience. I have some great digital products out there now, and I'm really kind of diving into. I'm very much about processes. I love talking about that kind of stuff, and so that's where I sit now, in the kind of creator processes, note taking space.
So great. Okay,
Yeah.
so I want to put this note out there because we have some people in the audience. So we will do some Q&A at the end. We'll chat for 30 or 40 minutes, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. And if you're actually on your computer on Chrome, you can call in. You can click the start live call, and you can ask your question live with us. So I look forward to some questions at the end. So here's where I want to start, Ev, because I feel like there's kind of a new breed of creator that is out there creating Notion templates and creating digital products and creating resources and courses and things like that. And I see a lot of them where it feels like they're almost like jumping on a bandwagon. They see that it's the gold rush, right? There's money to be made. You can string together a Notion template pretty quickly and sell it online for $20 and make a quick buck, right? Especially if you can combine that with a bigger audience and yada yada. I don't think that's you. I don't think that your motivation was like, I'm going to make a quick buck off of this Twitter thing, right? I just don't get that vibe. And so before we dive into the technical and get into details and stuff about how to do creative work and how to take notes and all those kind of things, I would just love to get a bigger picture view and some more context around what is it about creative work that drew you to it, and what is your bigger purpose or bigger vision? What is it that you personally are working for as a creator or with your business? What's the big goal there?
Yeah, I think I'm so glad you get that vibe, because that's it's nice that people don't think I'm just here for, I think there's nothing worse than someone who's kind of not necessarily here for the money, but I really find I love the creative process. I am at my very core a creative person, and that's why I think I've tried a whole lot of things in the past, and it's now that I've kind of found, the thing that I feel like I really do enjoy doing. And so for me, a big part of it is every day I enjoy writing, creating, kind of doing those kinds of things. The whole like business side of it, I don't actually love that much. And so, like, I would just rather just be able to sit at home all day, read, take notes, create things. Like, that's kind of like my real passion. But I suppose the whole reason that one, I discovered Notion. That was a big catalyst for me. I'd used a lot of different things in the past. I'm generally a process workflow person, so I can teach that really well. And I found Notion a really great, just a really great way to be able to then put that out online. I saw a real, just a, I yes, I saw an opportunity, and I thought, okay, I could probably create some things. But more than that, I think people. I remember just putting my first dashboard up on Reddit, and people going, "Oh, do you have that as a template?" I'm like, "Is that a thing? I didn't even know it was a thing." Like, so I think from very early on, I kind of saw signals of things, and so that's how I work. If people ask me for things, I think, "Oh, okay, I'm going to go in that direction." But I think about when was it? It was sometime in 2020, like early on in 2020, we'd gone into lockdown here in Sydney, and I work with health and fitness businesses in my actual job, my full time job, and all of my clients had to shut their doors. They couldn't operate, and I thought, I've got all my eggs in this one basket over here, which is my kind of employed work. And I think a lot of people felt that in 2020, that the world that they felt like was secure for them actually wasn't. And actually, everything could be kind of, just pulled out from under them. And so that got me thinking about then really trying to diversify. And I knew I had other skills. I knew I wanted to, do something kind of for myself as well. And so now, I think for me, I still work a full time job. I do creative thing on the side, um, but I really feel like I want to create kind of a portfolio of things that I do. Um, and I suppose I started following, if you're familiar with Daniel Vassallo, he talks about portfolio of small bets. And I think I really took that on as, okay, I think a lot of people feel like employed work is very secure. But I found that actually my secure work almost, like got taken away in a really,
Yeah,
bizarre time, that, is kind of a once in a lifetime, I think, thing. But um, I think now we're in an opportunity where anyone can pick up their phone or start writing or do all sorts of things and actually create kind of the lifestyle that they want, and that kind of thing. So that's kind of like, yeah, like overall, kind of where I'm going and how I think.
that's awesome. I'm curious if you've given much thought or how you see yourself in this industry, in this creator economy, because like I had mentioned earlier, you don't seem like an opportunist. So did you strategically go into it thinking I'm just going to try to help people, or were you just kind of following your I wouldn't say passions, but the things that you are excited by? Like,
Yeah,
how did you approach it? Because I know that there's probably a lot of people that follow you and follow me that are they want to do creative work. They would love to have a similar scenario where they keep their full-time job, but they've got some side income and they're creating things and they're connecting with people and that stuff. So to me, I think it prohibits you if you approach it as an opportunist and you're just trying to make a quick buck. So how do you
yeah.
see yourself? And also, like, how do you recommend that people enter the creator economy?
Okay, I think that I'm just a massive oversharer. So that, like, if I'm learning something, I'm probably going to tell people about it in some way. So, and also, so in 2019 or it was 2018, I vlogged for a year. And the whole reason for that was to actually keep myself accountable to some of the goals that I had that year. And so I felt like I wanted like a public way to actually make that, like, kind of keep myself accountable. Like, I mean, a few people watched it, my mum, my auntie, those kinds of people. But I feel like being online, it creates a really great opportunity to, learn things and then teach things, and that's kind of where I think, I get to, is like every time I'm learning something, I want to then share that, and then that seems to be helpful to people. So then I think, oh, maybe I have something unique here. Like, no one ever thinks they have something unique until they share it and someone says, "Oh, I never thought of it like that." And so I think that we live in a really great opportunity where you can open a Twitter account or Instagram or TikTok or whatever. And so I kind of see myself in that. Like, I honestly love the craft. So I love the craft of being a creator, and that's what keeps me going on the difficult days, like when it's like, oh, what am I even doing this for? And excuse me. And so, yeah, I think I love the craft of it, and then people then kind of say, oh, that's interesting. And so if something's interesting, I just keep going in that direction, following the signals of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, that's so cool to hear because I just recently, I forget who it was. It might have been the Tilt or somebody, or I think ConvertKit did a study as well. But I've read a few of these like industry studies where they pull 10 or 20,000 creators and do the survey. And one statistic that kept popping up was like the amount of time it was taking people to like feel like they were making a certain amount of money from their creative work. And the number that I remember, and I might be getting this wrong, so I apologize, but it was like 18 months on average for creative people who's to start and then start making money. And I was just like, 18 months?
It's a long time.
I would never wait. I'm way too impatient to wait 18 months. And I mean, for context, like I started Craftsman Creative right at the beginning of the pandemic. I launched in
Mm-hmm.
April of 2020 with two of my own courses. They didn't sell very well because it was the beginning of the pandemic. But then I did another course with a partner and she did 10 grand in sales in the first week. I was like, yeah, I don't want to wait 18 months to make 10 grand. I want it now. So I think there's ways to do it. And this kind of transitions us into like the real meat of this conversation that I was excited to dive into you with. Because I think we both probably have experience around this. How do you do creative work for a living, especially if you have a full-time job? I can't tell you probably a dozen times this month already that people have said, either on a podcast interview or in my community or just DM on Twitter, how do you do it? Because you
Yeah.
have a wife and three kids, you're full-time. I work in film, I produce movies. So like I'm a busy dude, but in the last year I wrote a book, and so
Yeah.
there's ways to do creative work. And I'm really curious to dive in with you on how you use writing and note taking as a catalyst for creative work. Because as far as I know, you haven't sold any of your writing. You haven't published a book. You haven't sold like an email course or anything like that, where it's like the writing is the product. So you're using writing as a catalyst, if I'm getting this right. And then you're also creating products. And I'm guessing that a lot of those products surface because you're doing the writing. So maybe start as high level. And then, like, I'm totally fine taking like the rest of the conversation, talking just about that because I'm into a lot of this stuff, but I feel like you've got such a better grasp on a process for how to do this.
Yeah, and I think first of all, I am an incredibly systemized, process-driven person, and so I think that just kind of came across as soon as I started writing. I was like, okay, got to find this process. It just helps me to feel clear and that kind of thing. In the same sentence, I'm also an incredibly messy, kind of like scrappy creator as well, because I don't have time all the time to, polish things up and get things. So I learned really early on, minimum viable kind of shipping and get it out there. And so I really discovered the atomic essays from Ship 30 for 30 as a great way to just get things out really fast, that I didn't feel like, like when I write a Medium article, I'm like, oh, is this okay? Like, it's like, it feels like much more of an investment online than just like atomic essay out, done. Okay, hopefully people like it. And I like that feedback of it, that it's on Twitter. I get immediate feedback. And I think that creates a really great kind of loop that way. So I think One thing, I suppose, okay, one, I do something every day. So I try and find the minimum thing that I can do every day, because I feel like if I can do that, then it's. I tried to do the 2 blogs a week, but that didn't work, because it was like some days I'm writing, some days I'm not, and so I found that writing every day an atomic essay worked for me because I found the rhythm. And I think that's that's a really important thing. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a full essay. It could just be turning up on Twitter every day. Like, I know Tweet 100 as well changed how I did Twitter. Just,
Hmm.
like 280 characters, one tweet a day, 100 days. And that, I think, really gets you in this whole rhythm and this whole kind of, okay, I'm ready to turn up every day. And so I kind of do both of those. I am incessant about ideas. So every time I have an idea, I write it down. And sorry, excuse me.
Hmm.
and uh, and so ideas are key. And I don't mind if I have 1,000 of them in a list. I'd rather have more ideas than less. And so as I go through my day, I might think about things. So there's a whole lot of kind of ideas, feedback loop, doing stuff every day, finding the rhythm, and then actually just finding what you love to do. Like, very early on, I thought I wanted to do YouTube. I was like, that's the way to be a creator. But actually, I could not stay consistent at it at all, and I still can't. And I'm okay with that now, because you have to find the creative outlet, I think, that works for you. And even though people say, I like, lots of people tell you, I love your YouTube videos, or I sometimes do little TikTok videos. Oh, I love those little videos that you do. I'm like, yeah, I love them too. But I can't do them every day. And so I think, finding that everyday thing, I think is really cool. So apart from that, like technical kind of process stuff, I have a set time that I work every day in my creative life. So I'm a morning person. I'm up around 5 o'clock, and I write for a couple of hours before I dive into anything else. And I found that that worked for me. And actually, because I like doing it, it's not a hard. It's not hard to get up. I actually get excited to get up and get into notes and things like that. So I think finding that sacred time is really important, and then having some kind of system. So I take all of my ideas and I get them into kind of, I call it the up next list. So I kind of look at my weekly creator time as like if you're in a kitchen, like a professional kitchen, and you have the menu orders. And so
Hmm.
I kind of take like the best ideas, like the ones I'm most excited about, and I kind of put them up on the board. And I say, okay, this is my up next list. And so they're kind of like not physically, but just in my
Yeah.
system. And so those are kind of my intentions to publish every day. And I think a really big part of, especially when you're doing it part time, is just finding the easiest way to do things. Like, so many times we think hard equals good, but actually it doesn't have to. So I'm just looking for the easiest thing to publish every day. So I'm looking for the thing I've got the most notes on, or I've written the most about. So I do a big brain dump on everything. I'm looking for something that excites me to write, and I'm looking for, do I have the energy for this? So sometimes I might have like a little bit written about something, but I have a lot of energy that day. So, I can get something written. And those are my 3 criteria every day for publishing. Just find the easiest thing to do. And that seems to work. It seems to be able to get things out really, really quickly. And I tend to start with small things and build upwards. So I start with tweets, and I do a lot of, I'm hugely data driven. I love to look back, see what resonates, what people have liked, and then I move up from there. I might take a tweet, turn it into an essay. I just randomly wrote a tweet the other day about the tools I use. I always know tools, people are going to love that. And I thought, oh, okay, people did like it. So now I'm going to expand that into maybe an article. tell people how I use that. So I think it's like listening to all those little signals and thinking you don't have to necessarily start with the biggest thing. You can start with a tweet and then you can work your way up. And it's much easier than because you've started with something and you're not, having that blank page moment. So that's kind of a few little of my kind of ways to get things out.
Okay, this is amazing, and I feel like there's some stuff we should zoom in on a little bit, and
Yeah.
then I want to figure out how do you turn all that work into products and into a
Hmm.
business, right? So, just to share my experience, because I think it's relevant at this point, when you talk about you have to find the creative outlet that works for you.
Yep.
I made a conscious decision about August of last year that I wanted to enter the creator economy in a more prominent way. I've been in
Yep.
the creator economy, if you wanted to call it that, for my entire adult life. I started my first business in college when I was, I mean, I don't even know how old I was, but probably 24 or 25 or something like that. So it's 16 years that I've been like doing creative work
Mm.
at a professional level. You can call that creative economy work. But um, it was just recently that I wanted to be like building an audience and having like a content enterprise, as Joe Polizzi calls it. So it was a very conscious thing, and I decided, okay, well, I'm going to enter the creator economy. How am I going to do this thing? And then my first thought was similar to yours. I went with video as the natural way to go because I have this decade plus long career in history, or career
Yes.
in film and television and doing video, and I can spin up video really easily. Like me doing a 5-minute video could take an hour, as whereas it takes other people a whole week, right?
Yep.
But at the time, I didn't even have an hour a day. Like the idea of committing to producing a video every week was like, nope, that's not going to work. Plus, the other thing that I noticed was, how much time do I spend on YouTube? The answer was zero. Like I maybe watch one video a
Yes.
week, maybe. It's probably more like one every 2 weeks that I actually am on YouTube watching something. So I don't have subscriptions there. I don't follow people there. I don't have a big channel there. Like it would have been starting from scratch, but B, I would have had to create an entire new routine and habit
Yeah.
around doing that type of creative work. So instead, I knew that I could write because I'd been writing online for over a decade as well. I'd never tried to monetize it or turn it into a big list or anything like that. It was just an outlet, creative outlet, kind of like
Yeah.
the Ship 30 stuff, just on my own blog, right?
Yeah.
And I looked at my screen time. I legitimately did this. I looked at my screen time and said, where am I spending my time online? And it was like 90% Twitter and 10% Instagram and 0% anywhere else. I didn't go on LinkedIn or Facebook or
Yeah.
Reddit or TikTok or any of those things. It was those two, and it was like a 10-1. I was spending more time on Twitter. I said, great, I'm going to commit to that, and I'm going to start only publishing on Twitter, and I'm going to write. And so then it became, okay, well, I want this writing to become something. So that's where the idea for a book came. And I just used that as the vehicle to like enter the creator economy. I'm cruising down the, center, the mile, right?
Yeah.
Because it feels like I'm cruising, not like speeding through. I'm not on a racetrack yet, but I think it's such an important mindset thing for people who are starting to, or who have a desire to be a creator, to realize that it takes a lot of thought early on, or at least it should, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Like, the more that you give thought to how you're going to enter, what vehicle you're going to use, what medium, what platform, all those things
Yeah.
make it so much easier down the line. So the other thing I
Yeah.
wanted to kind of reiterate and make sure that I'm getting it right, because it sounds like your process starts with capturing, that
Yep.
you've got a document open, and all day long, whenever you have a spark or an idea or a thought, you just make sure you capture it. And I think that's super important, because a lot of times as creators, we're just like, oh, I'll remember that, or I'll remember that lyric, I'll remember that melody, I'll remember that line, I'll remember that idea for a blog post.
Yep.
5 minutes later, it's gone. You're like, oh, that was 5 minutes ago. How did that happen? So, like,
Yeah.
having a methodical way, that sounds like, I mean, I do that as well. I have morning pages as a habit. So every morning I'm doing a brain dump first thing, because I'm just always
Yeah.
buzzing in the morning. And if I don't do that capture process, then I'm like sporadic, and I'm going like a freaking like squirrel, squirrel, squirrel all over the place all day long. I open up like 8 different new projects and I only get one done. And that's not a
Yeah.
great way to work. So for you, it sounds like, similar to me, it starts with capture. And then you're turning that into progressively greater magnitude pieces of content,
Yes.
starting small. If it resonates, you'll go the next level. If it resonates, you go the next level. So what does it look like when it goes from content to something that people could purchase, to like a product or a service?
Yeah. So it looks okay. I'll give you a real practical example.
Sweet.
So I don't even know when it was, but I have a writing inbox that I go into every morning. It's got all different notes in there, stuff that I've consumed. That's where I start every morning. It's like my morning pages. So one morning I was like, actually, this looks interesting. So I screenshot it and I put it up and I said, as a creator, this is where I start every morning in my writing inbox. And I just sent it out as, just a random tweet. It was not even planned. And people were like, what's this writing inbox? And so I was like, oh, okay, that's a little signal there. And so then from there, I wrote an atomic essay about it. Again, lots of signal. I'd love to hear more about this. So then I wrote a Medium article, which became one of my most read Medium articles. And so from there, and no one was really like, I didn't see anyone else talking about this. What I've just got lots of questions, and so I did turn that into my course, which is Effortless Creator, which I just did the last two cohorts of, and taught people how to kind of start in this writing inbox and get to all of the uh, and kind of make that into what you create, and so that's kind of a practical example of like something that I created and used and then wrote about and then was able to turn that into a course, but then I also have it as a product, and so because a lot of what I do is and what I write about is process driven, it is fairly easier to turn into digital products, and then also that was my first kind of foray into a cohort course, which was really fun. It was fun to kind of actually get on Zoom and talk to people and see people light up when they went through the same process and they realized actually I can be really intentional about what I'm consuming and then use all of that to create really great content. So that's kind of practically how it works. It's like, as you're writing about things, I'm looking for the things that really resonate, and then I'm thinking, okay, well, how can I create that? And I mean, I feel like there's so many ways to create digital products. There's everything from a course all the way down to templates, but then also kind of resource things. If you kind of a collector or that kind of thing, you might create a whole resource like an Airtable or a Notion database that people can get. So there's a lot of different ways, and I think it's about just putting it out there and really listening for those signals. Saying, okay, that's something that's really interesting to people, and the only way that that happens is if you talk about things a lot. So I find like with a lot of creators, I think, oh, I've just talked about that one time, and so now I have to like then not talk about that ever again. But actually, like the more that you talk about it, the more people see that, and then the more you're known for that, and the more signals you can get in that way.
Gosh, that's amazing. So
Mm,
I wrote down something because this is like one of my little spark notes that has been sitting in the back of my head for a little while that I've been trying to expand on. So I'm excited to jam on it with you a little bit. So
yeah.
we all know the basic economic principle of supply and demand, right? And I have found it frustrating as a digital creator to create demand that outweighs the amount of supply, right? Because when you create a
Yep.
digital product, unless it's maybe like a limited time or a limited seat cohort based course, you basically don't, you have infinite supply because it's a digital
Yes.
product that literally the entire internet could buy 100 times and it still would be available. It would never run out, right?
Yep.
And so the thought was, okay, and I think Daniel Presley wrote a book called Oversubscribed, and it's an amazing book. But it really talks about like if you don't have demand that outweighs or outnumbers the amount of supply, you're going to struggle. And I have personally experienced that my
Yep.
entire life as a creator, right? Because anyway, not because. So here's the thought: is that it sounds like what you are doing is you're not manufacturing or creating demand, you're discovering demand. And by iterating that way, instead of coming out the gate and saying, hey, I'm doing a cohort based course, and then hoping that there's 10 people who want to buy it when there's only 8 seats available, or et cetera, you're actually taking a reverse approach where it sounds like you're discovering demand, you're seeking it out, you're like a little digital archaeologist where you're going, okay, let me scratch a little at the surface to see if with this tweet if there's any demand there. Oh, there is. Let me dig a little deeper with like a bigger pick. Oh, there's a little deeper. Let me get the shovel. Oh, let me get the digger, right? So you're kind of progressively going deeper and deeper and deeper when you've discovered like a vein of gold worth of demand there. And tell me, I mean, if you're willing to share, like, how did your cohort based courses go? Was there like, were there enough people? Was it a good experience? Were they happy? Like, tell
Yeah.
me about how that went, because I'm very curious how this process worked for you to go from like tweet to ship 30 post, atomic essay to medium post to like product.
Yeah. It was great. So I think I opened 20 spots in both cohorts, which I filled both. And so for me, that was a nice success. And I think I knew that I had people who would want to do it. One, because people said, if you ever do something like that, I will come and do it. And so I was like, great. So I think you are correct, and I think I might steal that, like digital archaeologist wording, because I was like, oh,
There
that's
you
really
go.
cool. But here's what I saw when I first started writing online. Had friends, they're like, okay, I'm going to do a course now, and I was like, all right then. But like then you spend like a year doing modules and doing all of this, and instead I spent a year just writing and building an audience. And so then when you do put something out, like, look, launching something is still scary. Like, it still could be a flop. I thought at the end of last year, I thought, oh, how good would it be to create like a journal, like that people could have like a writing prompt every day. Well, 3 people bought the pre-launch of that. So I was like, okay, I didn't really follow the signal there. There was no signal. I just thought this is a cool idea. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's much easier to launch something, even though launches are hard and you still are not sure. It's much easier to put that out when you know and you've heard from people that, yes, I'd be interested in something like that, or if you ever do this, I'd really like it. Sometimes that can lead to things that you don't necessarily like to do. So a couple of people said to me, oh, you should do some coaching or that kind of thing. And to be honest, I just don't really like doing that. And I did a few times. I was like, no, this isn't for me. And so you still have to be true to what you enjoy doing. And so now from there, I love the cohort uh, kind of course, but I'm going to take that and I'm just going to do it as a self-paced course. And then as people come in, I'm going to just have some pop-ups that, because I kind of like that more than feeling like I have to be in the one place at the one time. So you kind of discover what you like to do. But I think you just, yeah, I start small and I go up, and it decreases the risk for me. And it means that I'm constantly out there and I'm constantly putting things out with little risk, to kind of think, well, this was a complete failure.
Yeah, amazing. So I wrote this down. Better to discover demand for an outcome rather than try to manufacture demand for a product.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
Well,
that's what it
because
sounds like you're after is people are telling you what they want. They want an
yes,
outcome. They're not saying, "Hey, I want a product from you." They're saying, "I want your help with this thing because you figured it out." Right?
exactly right. And I think it's probably come from, I've definitely bought into those sales pages that, have the countdowns and all that. And like in my full-time job, that I do marketing, so I understand the marketing side of things. But
Right.
sometimes that feels icky as a creator. Sometimes it feels icky as a marketer too. But we won't go with that side. Um, but
What's the
you know,
book? Marketers ruin everything.
they do. And I think that, I think there I'm looking for a more authentic way to be a creator, and I'm looking for a sustainable way for it. I don't think necessarily I've found it. Like there's still, launches are still amazing, and then you get into like the normal cycle of products, and you're like, okay, maybe I need to launch something again because you want to create that demand. So there's still, still kind of discovering that, but I feel like I don't actually want to create another full time job for myself. I want to find a way to do what I love, to help people, and then have that be some kind of sustainable income.
Well, I think that approach actually leads to greater success more often than the approach of I want to make money online.
Yeah,
You say you just are showing up every day and you want to help people, and you're chasing your own creativity and your own desires to learn and study and expand and figure out what you think about things like that. Is it's a much more enjoyable experience to be doing what you love every day, and
yeah,
then taking that one extra step or clicking it up one notch and saying, well, I'm going to turn this into some extra revenue. If you approach it as I'm just going to be helpful in a way where I'm going to help people implement things or coach them on things or show them how to do it, people aren't paying for information anymore. You can find information for free on the internet. So
yep,
if you want to take that one extra step, you just kind of like turn it into here's help implementing this process or this framework or learning these
that's right.
principles and applying them to your business. Then you're being helpful, and it's so much easier a place to market from, which is really just like I just had a tweet on this yesterday, which is marketing is not trying to compel people to make a decision. You're not trying to coerce people to do things. It's an invitation. And first of all, the invitation needs to be targeted to like the people who should actually come, right? It's not like
Yes,
you don't want to airdrop an invitation to a party to your entire city because you don't know who's going to show up. And that's going to be a crazy party if you got people that are homeless and people that are left wing, right wing. If you have all of these disparate groups of people showing up
yeah,
thinking that there's a party to be had, that's going to turn into a fight instead of a party. So you have to be specific about who you're inviting. And then
yeah,
with the invitation, you got to word it or frame it in a way where it's like, this is enticing. This is something you want to come to. It's
yeah,
so much easier when you've framed your entire approach around being helpful rather than taking advantage of an audience of people. Because my gosh, I cannot stand, I rant on this way too much and I apologize that I'm taking time to do it, but I'll be quick. Like, I just can't stand the people, the marketers or the internet creators that think the internet is vast and there are millions and billions of people that I could burn through in order to get a 1% conversion rate on some product that isn't even that good. I just know how to game the system to drive
yeah,
traffic, and it's going to work. And as soon as your ROAS becomes positive, then you funnel more money into it and you drive and burn more people. Like the idea of having an email list or a Twitter following of 100,000 people where only 2% or less are actually interested in the content or products you're creating.
yep.
No. Like, but I
Well,
also
and
think, go ahead, please. I've talked too
yeah, I
long.
was gonna say I don't. It's not that's not realistic for most creators, and they actually don't need that. And that's what
Yeah.
I mean. I launched my first paid product only maybe 2 months into really creating, and I think I had less than 1,000 people following me on Twitter. So you don't need that. And yeah, I think the more I get into the creator economy, the more I kind of am wary of the gamers, who are, like they're smart. Like I have full respect for that, but it's like still I think there's a different type of creator who doesn't want that. And he doesn't want that kind of, regurgitated information. They want to be known for something. They have something unique, and they have a voice. And you don't actually need, all of those followers to use your voice and to be authentic and to create something really cool.
Gosh, I'm so glad you brought that up. It's true. It's 100% true. If you look at my audience, I don't have even 2,000 people yet that are following me on Twitter. My email list just crossed 2,000 people, but that's across many different segments. So, like, my
Yeah,
newsletter segment is just crossed like 700 people. And I shared this in my community. I'll share it here. But like my business last month did 20 grand, not including my film producing revenue.
Yeah.
Like, you can have money as well. It's not that money is a bad thing, and it's not that you shouldn't
No.
pursue it. But if it's the main goal, you're going to constantly be frustrated that you're not making more. Whereas
Yep.
if you realize that if you approach your creative work by being helpful, by coming at it as someone who's teaching and sharing and helping and contributing, the money kind of takes care of itself as long as you've done the work to like structure your products and your
Yes.
marketing and all that stuff together. Those systems need to be in place.
Yeah.
But it sounds really like you've taken a reverse approach to a lot of the people that are espousing and teaching online, which is here's how to grow your Twitter following so you can make more money. And I'm just like, that's not the thing. That's actually not the answer. That's an
No.
answer. It works for dozens and hundreds of people, but like, I don't know. I'd
It.
love to hear your thoughts on all that.
Well, I think that so many people focus on outcome rather than focusing on what they can do and letting the outcome take care of itself. So, I talk about this a lot. Where in business, you can think about leads, right, and just be obsessed with leads. I've got to get leads, or you can just do the things that you need to do every day so that leads become an outcome. And it's exactly the same in being a creator. Is if I know if I show up every day and if I'm writing and if I'm doing all of those things, audience happens, and then income happens from there. And I realized that really early on. And I'm also in a nice position where I'm not desperate to have to make money. And I think that, there's a lot of people who say, well, just quit your job, go all in, that kind of thing. I think that's a dumb idea, especially because most people have, they have responsibilities, they have families, that kind of thing. And I don't think you need to do it. I think that you need to find a way to, that you can sustain both until one or the other kind of tips over, and maybe you go all in on one. But I do think we're kind of coming into a space where you are going to have multiple things on the go. You might have maybe a full or a part-time job. You might have freelancing. You might have some products, and you end up with this portfolio. And I feel like that's kind of where we're heading. I feel like the pandemic really sped a lot of things up
Mm-hmm.
in kind of how we interact with our own employers and how we kind of view the world. And so, yeah, I think that I think focus on what you do every day, and then let the outcome take care of itself.
Amazing. I feel like that's a really good place to kind of wrap up the conversation this time around. I'm desperate to do a round two at some point because this has been incredible chatting with you. Mainly because I think it's such an important. A lot of the content I put out is focused around mindset, and
Yeah,
we focused a lot about that. It's the technical or tactical approach that you take. It's going to be different for everybody because everyone's different. But like
yeah,
the approach that comes from your mindset is such an important part. I'm really glad that a that our mindsets kind of like aligned that way, but
yes,
b that we spent so much time on it because I feel like it's undercovered, covered
yeah.
less.
I agree. Yeah,
So very very cool. I would love to know where people can find you online. How can they reach out to you if they want to become your friend? All of those things.
yeah. So Twitter is probably the the place. You can follow me, Evelyn C, Evielanc, or just head to my website. You've got all the links there, which is evchapman.com, and reach out. I'm not some kind of like person who doesn't you know. Well, sometimes I don't reply to my DMs, but most of the times I'm very good. But I love to chat with other creators and build community. So yeah, definitely reach out.
Yeah, you've proven that because you've just been such a great connector and involved in so many different spaces and communities and such a support to other creators. So I've seen that and it rings true. So I highly recommend people reach out because you are amazing. Thanks for
Yeah,
taking the
thanks,
time
Darren.
today. It was really, really great chatting with you and look forward to chatting again soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This was fun.